What's going on, everybody? Feder here from 3D Print SOS. Welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, we are going to be taking a look at Creality's flagship, the K1. So this printer is coming in at $599, which is actually a really compelling price for everything that's marketed for this machine, for its construction, for its size, etc., etc. There's a lot on the plate here for Creality, and I want to do it justice by really taking a closer look at this machine. Now, some of the biggest marketing tactics that they use is talk about its speed. They say that it can print at 600 millimeters per second at a 20,000 millimeter per second acceleration. Now, that's very similar marketing to a bunch of fast machines that are coming out right now, one of which I had some experience with. Just behind this box is the Chiditech X+3. That machine did have some issues coming in, but I still print with it, and it still definitely works. I've printed a ton of ABS, things of that nature with it, both fast, slow, medium, so I have some experience with that genre, and so I'm going to use that knowledge that I earned in the past few months with that machine with this Creality K1 machine, and hopefully I will have a better understanding for its value and hopefully share that with you guys. Now, one of the things I know it's going to be good at, especially with their own Hyper Series PLA here, is I know it's going to be able to print a very fast and impressive benchy and do some self-tests that are also very fast, but I really want to know what this thing is like to use on the daily. So my plan is to get this out of the box, show you everything that's in there. We're going to do some test prints to make sure that everything's functioning correctly, and then I want to jump into things like ABS and ASA, which is what I'm mostly interested in. Maybe throw some TPU from there because I do print in TPU quite often. I want to know what this machine is like to live with for about a week or so, and then report my findings with everything I find. So I'm definitely going to tackle this machine exactly how I do the rest. Just for a quick disclaimer, this was sent to me by Creality along with the filament to test. No money was exchanged hands. I'm not supposed to say anything specific whatsoever, so this is going to be as honest of an opinion as I can give. And they're going to see this video for the first time, just like you guys are. So without further ado, how about we get this thing out on the table? I'll show you everything that's in there. We'll go over it, we'll do an update, and we'll start just printing right away. All right, let's get this thing out. Alright, so here's the box. Let's get into it. I actually don't need my blade because it is already open. I did have to take this out of a wooden crate that you guys might have seen in the intro there, which is very interesting packaging, that's for sure. But my box is definitely open. I have not gotten into the contents at all, so I'm going to be taking it out and seeing it for the first time here. I am going to just assume that I have some level of a reviewer's or technical sample of this machine. So just keep that in mind, that some things might be different, but I have no idea. This does look like a retail package. So let's get right into it. Probably gonna have to sit this down. Looks like we're at the foam right off the bat. On top here we have the top of the machine. It's in a nice bag with some manuals. We'll take a look at that in a second. Okay, so yeah, it's just the machine in there. Let me go ahead and set this down and get the machine out on this table. It is much smaller than I anticipated. I obviously knew the dimensions just from looking online, but in person, this is like a cute toaster. All right, so we have our power cable right here on the front. Kind of thin, actually, surprising. We have some big rubber feet. That's nice. Nice high-density foam. Let's see what we got in here. We have a box. All right, looks like we got some tools. Look at this. Nice little poker. We have some snips. We have a full-size wrench. It looks like a 10 and a 12 millimeter wrench. A plastic scraper. We have, I'm guessing, a tube of grease. That's nice. We have some glue stick. We have a 16 gigabyte USB drive. Looks like a USB 2.0. I'm going to keep this out so that we can add some files to it. And then some more tools. Looks like just the basics, as well as a nozzle wrench. That's a nice inclusion. We have, yeah, it says 6 and 6. Cool. I like to see that. Always nice to see full-size tools in a kit, you know. Okay, then it looks like we have a little sample of filament, and this is hyper white PLA. Okay, so they give you a little baby spool of the larger stuff that they also sent, and all of it happens to be in white. Yep, hyper white PLA, hyper white PLA. This must be the screen. It's very light. The screen is much lighter than I expected. Okay, yeah, before applying power, please check the switch. Okay, will do. Let's leave that out. And we have the spool holder. Looks like the typical Creality style where you put it in and twist it. All right, what else we got inside? Looks like there's just more foam. Interesting little sandwich of cardboard and foam for protection. All right, I don't see anything else in there. There's lots of stickers with arrows and such. We'll check that out in a second. Let's take this wrapping off. Looks like the top hat here, that's acrylic, has magnets in the corners. Snaps nice and clean. Let's see if there's anything important. We got a sticker pack, similar to the stickers, if not the same stickers you get in the Sonic pad. The manual, let's see, yep, tells you to update, QC sticker, cool. Okay, let me go ahead and unwrap this thing, and I'll see you here in just a second. Alright, so there it is. Not much of an assembly, more of a de-stickering, if anything. There were 3 screws at the bottom that were kind of holding the plate down for shipping. I do kind of wish this door would stay open. It tries to close, and maybe there's some adjustment I can make to stop that. But I gotta say, everything on this machine feels extremely high quality. It definitely doesn't feel like an old school Ender did with the cheap aluminum extrusions, that type of thing. The fact that it is an all metal and this kind of gray color reminds me of a MacBook. Uses the glass in the front, magnets everywhere that it can. Everything is very tidy, neat, compact, and feels of quality. It definitely feels a lot more than $600, if that makes any sense. I have a feeling that anyone who buys one of these things is going to get a certain feeling when unboxing this thing and putting it together. Well, not so much together, but taking everything off. It definitely builds confidence that you made the right decision almost right away. Just in how it feels and looks, and I know that has a lot to do with it. Now, if we can back up that look and feel with its performance, I think we might have a winner. But let's not count our chickens before they hatch, right? So the first thing I want to do before anything else is kind of take a closer look. I did notice that there is an exhaust fan for the entire chamber on the back, but there's no hardware surrounding it for a filter, for example. But I would assume that it would be pretty easy to make our own filter, if anything. One thing I want to do before I turn it on, I did see that there is a hole in the side here in the acrylic panels that are on the side. It looks like the front is glass, but this is acrylic, same with the top. There is a hole right down here, and my power supply was set to 220, and I changed it to 110. But that brings me to the bottom here. I'm trying to be as careful as possible. I don't want to scratch it right away. By the way, if you guys hear some noise, my cat is going crazy tonight. Must be a full moon or something. Alright, let's get this thing on its side. And what I would like to do, let's take these foot extensions. So one other thing to note is the rubber feet that it comes with very nice, by the way, they attach to another set of rubber feet. But what I wanted to do was I want to get in here and check out what's underneath the hood here. So let's go ahead and take this panel off real quick while we're here. Alright, and there is a fan attached to the steel here, 24-volt fan. Yeah, let me bring you in a little bit closer. Alright, so let's see what we got under here. So the first thing I notice is this very interesting pulley system with gearing for the extruder motor. There's a single, not extruder motor, for the stepper motor. There is a single stepper motor going to a larger cog, going to a smaller one, going to a tensioner that's splitting it against, I'm guessing, the 3 rods that are holding the bed. So that's something. We do have a Creality branded power supply. It doesn't say Meanwell anywhere, or does it? Let's see. Nope, it is their own Creality branded power supply. Looks like it says 240 volts, but over here it says CMS 350, so 350. So far, all of the connectors are crimped properly. There is glue on everything that could possibly come loose. I see a Wi-Fi antenna here going to the outside here, not through the metal, but on the acrylic side. The 3 stepper drivers that are kind of built into this board, which looks very high-tech, by the way, has heat sinks on it. The fan does blow directly onto the board. Right over here. Interesting to see grounding directly to the chassis. This thing looks to be very well built down here. We have a ribbon cable going to the display. Definitely a proprietary board for Creality, and definitely way better looking than their typical boards that I have dealt with on other Ender series machines. It does look like there is a mini USB, micro USB, right over here, which can be populated to some degree. I wonder what that's for, maybe debugging. Looks like there is a fan port that's available right over here. This says heater, and there's another heater available here, so that could be used for a heater for the chamber, for example, something along those lines. There's definitely a bunch of unsoldered connectors all over this board that are just not in, which is interesting. So they're definitely going to be using this board for other machines that they have, and you know, obviously that's a very smart thing to do. Cool, everything looks really nice down here. So far, so good. All right, let me put this back together and let's take a look at the hot end. All right, so let's go ahead and pop off this cover, and let's see. Oh, okay, we got some kind of adhesive. Just dried up. I think we have some glue. Yeah, okay, I don't want to move that too much. Let me get some isopropyl alcohol and clean off those rails. So while I'm cleaning this, I did notice, as you guys saw in the unboxing, that there was some grease in a tube, which is nice of them to include. I am also obviously noticing that these are steel rods and not carbon fiber like the other 2 machines. The Chitty-Tech, I'm referring to the Chitty-Tech machines that are coming out, and as well as the Bamboo Labs machines. Wow, this stuff's really on here, both the top and bottom rods. I'm guessing this is done for shipping so that it doesn't move around, but there is so much foam protecting it. It's kind of unusual, to be honest with you. There we go, now there's some motion. The extruder is over here in the back. It says Moon's stepping motor, so a nice high quality stepper motor on the extruder back here. There is this unlock and lock lever, which is interesting. I'm surprised they didn't make this cover easier to come off, but then again, it doesn't seem like they want you messing with much over here on this machine. I do notice a Gates logo on the belt. I mean, it looks to me like they are literally giving this thing its all. They are putting all of their engineering, all of their best materials, everything, their best foot forward on this machine. This really does look like and feel like a flagship printer from them. Alright, so I actually earlier said this was a 50-15 fan, but it looks like it is a smaller 40-20, I believe these are, the blower fans. Not a bad thing necessarily, and it does have a 3-sided cooling duct over here. Alright, so we have a kind of like a sandwiched board. There's 2 boards here. Lots of connectors that once again aren't populated, so there's definitely room for things that they've thought about, but definitely looks to be very proprietary in most ways. I don't see any of this being something you could easily modify. Now, this fan is a 3-wire fan or even a 4-wire fan, so that's something. I'm sure you could buy those, but just looking at it from here without taking it further apart, I do see a 30mm fan that's sandwiched very, very deep in here. That's cooling the hot end itself. Let me see if I can turn that over. It's kind of behind, yeah, It's behind the board. I'm going to try to touch it so you guys can see it because it's very tough to see. That right there is a 30mm fan for the hot end blowing backwards. Kind of interesting that they put it inside of there instead of in the back. You know, kind of getting air and pulling it this way. But, you know, they're obviously, like I said, putting their best foot forward with this machine, at least it looks like. Also very interesting that they're putting the PTFE tube inside here. It looks like this is kind of an interesting angle here. I wonder if that's going to play a role or not. We're going to have to figure that out. I'm assuming they've tested it and it's fine. But yeah, everything else looks good. Let's go ahead and put this back, and let's take a look at the screen and do our first power up. All right, everything is hooked up. I have the power cable running. I do got to say the power cable is shorter than most other machines. That's not really a problem, but it did reach where I had to go, but it is definitely noticeably short. All right, I have my finger on the power switch, which is right around back. Let's do our first power up. All right, let's take a look at this menu. So this is the home. We have our fans, model fan. All right, side fan, back fan, all the fans. Wow, this sounds like there is a hovercraft in my room. Awesome. That's great. You want all of these fans. This is not a bad thing. Looks like there's some tabs up here. Oh yeah, okay. Looks like some things are cut off, as you can see. All right, we got some basic movement. Temperatures again, motors off, Z height. Let's go down on the Z10. Okay, yep, okay. Just wanted to see how it moves. All right, let's extrude, retract. Okay, yep, nice. This will be easy for easy for switching filaments. Okay, nice. And cooling. All right. Was there tabs on home? No. Okay, so it does show our Wi-Fi signal there. Is any of this pressable? Bed input range. Oh, I guess because I clicked on the bed. Okay. Right. Same with the hot end. Yes. Okay. Nice and easy. All right. That was here. Let's go back to the folders. All right, so I do really like to see that there's not only files on here, but you can see the files themselves along with the time and how much filament. That's fantastic. Love to see this type of thing built in. Makes it very easy. So we have a 32-minute benchy on here. We have a 7-minute test that I heard this prints at 600, and it does say 600 speed test, so there you go. We have a cat over here that's an hour 22, and a first layer test. That's nice. USB drive, obviously nothing's plugged in. History, interesting. Okay. All right, let's go to the gear. Screen plus or minus. Okay, let's get it to see what the brightest is. Oh, it actually looks really nice here. Screen off. Cool. 5 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes is fine. Language, the scroll. Yep. Okay. Self-device test. Time zone. Bind the Creality. Export log. We can check the version. Is this where we can check the menu? Let's see. You're currently on the latest version. Okay. I'll definitely check that. K1, we have the size. Here we have everything in terms of its how much it has available to it, how much time is on it is all zeroed out. Cool. Basic information you can find in Clipper. Okay, and we have network and camera. Obviously there's no camera here. There's no AI detection because of that. Let's see what this little thing is. Help, online manual, frequently asked questions. Upload log. Please click the button below to upload your log. Cool. This will be easy to do. Help with in case there's any kind of problems. You'll be able to export your logs for the text to help you with anything. So yeah, very straightforward. Nothing crazy going on. This is a very similar menu to what you see on your computer when you type in your IP address. All right, let's go ahead and get our benchy going with our filament. Let's see what that's all about. I'm going to go ahead and lube the rods like I said I would. I'll clean the bed one more time. We'll preheat, and we're going to go ahead and run that. Alright, it looks like we have some more skipping, and actually this time we have a clog, so I'm going to hit stop. But yeah, that's definitely a clog. And it started to just printing in the air with nothing. But up until that point, it looks pretty good. Not sure what happened. I'm going to try to clear the clog, and we'll try it again. Alright, about 35-ish or so minutes later, let's see how we did. Comes right off. Alright, I know white's going to be hard to see. Let me see if I can get a shine from the light. I mean, this is a very decent benchy. There is some artifacting here and there, but nothing crazy. I wouldn't critique that too much. This is a 33, according to the screen, minute benchy. So you can go faster than this. You can go slower than this. But at 33, this is pretty good. There is a tiny, tiny little bit of imperfection, but we're really nitpicking here. I mean, I can almost read the text on the back here. The bottom looks perfect. Cooling was sufficient. Yeah, overall, great benchy. So now that I know this machine works, at least without clogging for this particular print, I'm not exactly sure what the problem was here, because nothing was tweaked here. I just adjusted. I just put this on a different roller, although to me, by hand, I feel no resistance on either, Maybe there was just something on the edge of the filament, on the tip of the filament or something. Either way, I think now that we know that the machine is functional and works as it should, I'm going to go ahead and try some different filaments and some different materials, and we'll see how it does. Alright, well, I'm about a day in, and so far I've only gotten a handful of prints. Mostly everything seems to be like this. There's not much tuning you can do to the machine. Actually, no tuning you can do at all. The only tuning that it does is what it does automatically before the prints. Not much else is provided for you, neither on the through the slicer, through the screen here, or through the interface that you get when typing in the IP address. It definitely feels like it's meant for beginners and meant for Creality to figure out what's going on, for them to automate almost everything, so that hopefully it just works. So far, something is definitely up I'm hoping it's just a simple hardware thing, like a screw loose or something along those lines. But I wanted to pause the video here for now to show you guys this. This is actually the machine's extruder, and it only took 3 bolts to remove. And it's very interesting. You can see it's very small, very lightweight. Has this very interesting mechanism. I haven't gotten into it yet. I'm hoping maybe it's just a spring loose or something along those lines. So if after this clip you see it printing, well, then you know that was related to that. But so far I've tried ASA, ABS, PLA. I'm getting a pretty similar issues, I guess. Once, PLA seems to be okay, at least now. But I definitely have a few similar issues with mine. But ABS and ASA I've had 0 luck with. So I'm going to take a peek in here, see if I can fix it, and, well, let's see what happens. Alright, so I took a peek. It's actually the next day, and I've taken this extruder apart. Everything looks fine in there, but then I noticed when putting this thing back together that if you take this little gear here and you go to spin it, everything spins free up at a certain point. There it goes, and it's kind of stuck, and you can get through it, like if you have enough power. And it's stuck again, and we're good, and there it goes, it's stuck again. I took it back apart, I checked all the gears, I made sure nothing's in there, I reseated the bearings, I even took the gears apart since they're identical, swapped places. I made sure nothing is bent and out of the ordinary, and it's not something that I can see. However, when it's put together, there it goes. Almost broke my nail doing that. So essentially that's what's happening, and I messaged Creality with a video, and they instantly said, hey, there's a problem that we're noticing with some of the earlier models. I have a reviewer's copy of this machine, so I have one of the first generations of this, and they said they're going to send me the newer one that will be on the rest of the machines. So I'm going to wait for that, throw it in, and we're going to pick up right where we left off with printing ASA, ABS, TPU, etc., etc. So hopefully the next clips you will see is this machine printing, because so far I'm digging a lot of this. I have a huge list already of pros and cons. So, well, let's wait on it, throw it in there, and see what happens. Alright, so it's been about 2 weeks, and I finally got the extruder from Creality. They also went ahead and sent me a Hotend. I'm going to check to see what the difference is. I have a feeling this was just sent as a kit, but if there's any kind of difference between the machine that I have, just know that I will put this in, and I'll obviously take note and make sure that I'll let you guys know what's going on. But if we take our extruder out here, the replacement extruder, let's put it into the locked position like this. It spins freely in all 360 degrees. So unlike mine, it gets kind of jammed up. That just a factory defect, because the quality on everything seems astonishing. So it's got to be something in the pre-manufacturing, reviewer early copy thing. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. As always, go into a product cautiously, wait for all these independent reviews. I'm always all for that. But I have a feeling this little gotcha that happened is literally just something that happens in pre-production units. Either way, I'm going to go throw this in. So hopefully the next time you see this, we're going to be printing, rocking, and rolling. All right, let's do this. I gotta say, it's been pretty fun. I've had a lot of good times with this machine now that I have the new extruder in. And I say new, although this extruder that they sent me is not new. It was actually from one of their pre-production machines, just so that I can get up and running, which I obviously really appreciate. However, I don't have the production one, so I couldn't test the hotter temperature filaments such as ASA and ABS, because apparently this extruder is not really capable of doing so. I did try anyway. I know Creality, I'm sorry. I still tried, but it would clog very easily and it just could not produce. Although they did say it can't print TPU, but spoiler alert, TPU came out just fine. So I've been testing it with different PLA from 3IIDMax and some from Amolen, which I will go over. There's a lot to cover. There's a lot to cover with this machine, and I want to touch on the prints because they are just coming out straight fire. Let's just dive right in. First, I started with benchies, just like anyone should and would. I guess the first one was their Hyper PLA. It's in all white. This is the 30-minute benchy. There's also a 17-minute benchy, which admittedly I didn't really test because this one was so good. It is nearly perfect. The only thing that I spotted, and I know it's hard to see on white, is there's kind of a interesting pattern towards the top of the bow here, and it doesn't go along the layer lines. It kind of goes downward. And what I noticed is when throwing regular PLA, it also does it, and throwing some silk with some glitter, I guess you want to call it, by Amolen here, it also does it. It kind of makes almost like a matte look in the front, and I don't know if that's just too high of a temperature or too low of a temperature, but it did it in all three. Otherwise, a really good benchy. You can pretty much almost read the text on the back, and it's just really good. So I didn't have a need to go any faster. This is already incredibly fast, although it is very capable of doing that. I also tested the brand new silk filament by IIIDMax. I'll have links for all this stuff down below if you're interested. And I printed these pretty awesome nozzles for this launcher. This is a print in place launcher with a built-in spring, and I printed it at 200% scale, and this film is gorgeous. It goes from matte black on one side to kind of like a silky, glittery silver on the other. And this launcher, you kind of push in what you're trying to shoot, and then you aim, and bam! Oh, that might have done some damage to the wall. Whew. Anyway, this thing is a lot of fun, and you can print all sorts of different projectiles. Very cool print. I highly suggest you check it out. I'll throw a link down in the description for this. Then to test more of the print in place, because print in place essentially prints somewhat complex designs at the same time, so I thought that would be a really good test with how good it is at speed with PLA. And this is a maze box. It would actually take me quite a bit of time to open this right now, but rest assured, it did come out pretty good. Let me see if I can get it done real quick. Here, how about I'll open it and speed through this process for you. All right, there you go. So this is a really cool print. It came out really nice. I did notice that the top here got a little bit warm, and only on the top. Everywhere else it is perfectly fine. So I adjusted that in the slicer. And since then have been printing just fine. It was just a small adjustment on the final layer. We just ended up cooling it down. So there, let me just close it just so I could set it down. Cool, fun print. There's also a lot of different designs of this container, but print in place seems to come out great. And one thing I wanted to mention about the build plate is the smooth build plate. I don't have any other machines that have this type of build material. It does say to glue it, even put glue on it, even right on the build plate itself, and I do use the glue that came with the machine, and everything that I've thrown at it has stuck absolutely perfect. So that's a little bit of a spoiler. The other thing I did was I tried printing TPU. TPU came out great. I printed some parts for one of my quads. Yeah, I'll be using this on my quad. It came out great. Absolutely no complaints. This profile did need some tweaking because I do have some wisps here and there, but none of these are tweaked besides the temperature for the top. Everything else was completely how it comes in the slicer. And the other thing is this. This is actually two really robust filament spool holders. And if you throw a spool on there, you can tell it spins quite a bit, so there's no need for anything else just outside of this. And the reason why I printed this is because I like to have this sitting on the side of the machine. Actually, it will be this white one right here, and that's where I like to put the spool, because the spool's on the back of this one, and we'll touch on that coming up right now. All right, so that is what I've printed in that time frame. There was a couple more things, but I don't have them here anymore. And so let's dive right into the cons. This list is actually quite long, so in the interest of time, I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet, and I'll just read what I have. There's no particular order except for a few. Like, for example, the extruder broke. I had to get it replaced. However, like I said, that is a pre-production problem and not so much what everyone else should expect. And it is really high quality. The part that broke, it didn't essentially break. As you saw in the video, mine had a defect in one of the gears, but the new one that came, perfectly fine. So the first con I have is there's no way to adjust offset, Z offset, In fact, there's no way to calibrate the machine in any way. Now, there's two ways to look at this con. The one way is there's no way to adjust it or calibrate it, and the other way is you don't need to adjust it and calibrate it. So there's definitely two types of people that are going to be interested in something like this because of how fast it can print, the package, the price, just the fit, the fit and finish of the machine. And those two people are going to be the people that like printing because of the hobby. They like to tinker, they like to build machines, kind of like me. And then there's other people that just want to print stuff. They don't care about how, they just want to print. And I think this is going to be leaning a little bit more, if not way more, towards that type of person. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever, but this is definitely more of an appliance than it is a hobby machine, if I can say that, I guess. There's still ways to modify, and I'm sure Nathan Builds Robots will showcase all the ways you can modify this thing, but it's definitely not geared for that in any way, and you could tell because there's nothing that you can adjust on your end. Not that I've needed to, but you can't if you wanted to. So for me personally, that's a con, so we'll just keep going through that. The settings in the slicer stay no matter what filament you select. So that I noticed right away. So for example, if you change some fan speeds, if you change the speeds of the machine, things of that nature in the slicer, as you would, and then you go ahead and select a different type of filament or any other filament profile that you have, the settings that you set don't stay with that type of filament, they just stay. So if you went from TPU or ABS to PLA, you got to keep in mind that in the slicer that comes with this machine, that this is geared towards, that stays. So you have to go back and redo all of your settings and save them again. So I'm sure that could be easily fixed, and it probably will be because it seems like a hassle. And it doesn't seem like it should be that way, and it isn't in any other slicer as far as I can tell, but it definitely stays on the printer itself and doesn't stay with the profile of the filament. So that's a con for me. The top hat that's on here is too low in my opinion. This PTFE tube, even though you can slightly adjust it here and there, was still rubbing, and when this thing was printing, it kind of scratches the top of that thing, and after a while it's just not going to look that good, and everything on this machine is so premium that's kind of, I guess, a little bit of a downside. I did see that there is a printable riser that you can print, so that might be an easy fix for that problem. This is not a quiet machine when printing PLA. In fact, this is probably the loudest machine that I have, by a lot. It's probably louder when it's printing with that auxiliary fan on than any of the machines that I have running all together. It's that loud. The movement isn't necessarily the loudest, but the fans are very loud, and in its defense, it needs those fans to print that fast, and printing that fast works really well on this machine. So don't buy this because it's quiet. And actually, I've had many people ask, hey, what are some settings that I can do to make it quieter? Well, you can print at normal speeds. Take it down, turn off the auxiliary fan, and then it will be a quiet, high-end machine. It just won't be printing fast, which is kind of the point of this machine and the way that it's built and equipped. So yes, it can print quieter, but it just seems kind of like, I don't know, buying a Ferrari and then driving it in traffic all day. It's just kind of that type of thing. You kind of want to take it to the racetrack and see what it can do. All right, let's keep going down the list. We have here that I had a loose side panel. Once again, this is a pre-production model. I'm assuming things like that aren't going to happen. So yeah, I just went back, I tightened the few bolts that were holding the panel on, and it hasn't come loose since. I had some glue or adhesive on the rails that I had to clean off. I'm not sure why they're there. There wasn't anything holding the machine. But, easy to clean off, but just noting that was there. Maybe it's there so that it doesn't move in shipping. I'm not sure, but kind of strange that there would be an adhesive on the rails before use. One of the main things that's like a day-to-day thing for me personally is the spool is on the back, the spool holder on the back. And I personally don't like that because if it's sitting on a table like this, I have access to it. But if it's sitting on my rack, which is where I keep my machines, I have to pick up the machine and rotate it to be able to get to it because there's no way I can reach the back and feed filament back there when this thing is sitting next to other machines. So The fix that I had for that was I added a slightly longer PTFE tube. You might not see it right here. Slightly longer PTFE tube, and I have the filament spool sitting on the side here, or you can print right out of a dryer, and that fixed that issue. So a longer PTFE tube would solve you not having to rotate this whole thing or getting a lazy Susan or something crazy like that. Everything on the machine is very much proprietary. The few things that aren't really, like the extruder motor or the fans, for example, even they have smaller custom connectors. They're not custom, they're just smaller JST connectors, which you can buy and you can replace, but they're not something that you can just get off the shelf and then pop it in. You're going to have to modify it a little bit, and when you're doing that, you might as well get the parts from Creality. They should be readily available, but very much a proprietary machine, not meant for you to take it apart, to modify, to make your own. This thing is what it is, and that's what it's for. And with the ridiculous success of the Bambu Labs machines, there is a market for that. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And in fact, I have a feeling that a lot of people getting into 3D printing are going to appreciate the fact that they don't have to get into it and modify it in any way, and it's all coming from one company. It's all kind of like together, under its own umbrella and its own warranty. So it's a con for me, but it might not be for everybody. There's no expert mode or advanced or clipper access in any way. Sure, you can click advanced in the slicer and you just get all of the settings, kind of like you in Cura opening every single tab type of scenario. So you can, I guess, tweak your profile, but you can't do anything to the machine. You can't adjust anything while it's printing. You have access to fans on and off. And that's about it. You can cancel the print, even though canceling sometimes doesn't work. It's one of the next ones on here. I think it's on the back. Is sometimes canceling the print doesn't work very well. In fact, you sometimes have to restart the entire machine for that to work. But these are just growing pains of getting such a complex, high-end machine out to the market as fast as possible. But I would like to see more control, especially from what I understand. It's based on Clipper in some way, shape, or form. I'm not sure how they're going about that, honestly. I need to do a little bit more research, but I personally would like to see a little bit more control for the people that know how to use it, and then, keep it the way it is for everyone else, and keep it behind like an expert mode, so to say. All right, let's go to the back of the page here for the rest of the cons. And there isn't much, actually. Okay, this is about the canceling. So if you cancel a print, you have to wait until the machine is fully ready. It starts to cool down. It does all this kind of trick cooling scenarios with the fans. Otherwise, it will not start the next print and actually throw some errors, which I've seen. And like I said, that's something that they're probably going to fix. And in fact, I'm not even sure if other people are going to witness this, but in my particular case, I've tried on several occasions when I was testing different materials to cancel the prints, and I was having problems with that. And resetting the machine, starting it back up, and letting it do its thing was the solution. The last thing I have here, I think I already mentioned, is the extruder is not ready for quote-unquote PETG, ABS, ASA, or TPU. But as you saw, I printed some TPU, and like I mentioned before, that's for the extruder. That's not going to be on everyone else's machine, at least from what I understand between my communication with Creality. Alright, so those are the cons for the machine. Let me get into the pros, because there's once again a lot to cover. Alright, so for the pros, we have extremely easy to get started. And I have a feeling that a lot of this is going to go into that direction. So just keep that in mind here. It is extremely easy to get started, to the point where if you literally find a file on the internet that you like, as long as it's a .3mf or STL, you drag it into the slicer, you just pick normal, you don't have to even go through any settings, and you hit print, and then you select this machine after it's on the network, or I guess you can put it on the card, which I've tried and it works well. You can just print, and it will just print that file for you. It is really, really easy to get started. It is pretty much completely hands-off. There's nothing that needs to be tweaked or set up. There's no knobs, nothing. You just pick the file, and you hit print on this machine. It is a compact, high-quality design. So that's true. So this machine can fit inside of a lot of other machines that I have that are similarly sized and even just a little bit larger, but they've managed to keep this machine really tight in all the dimensions, and it still, you know, has a build plate size of about the same as another, you know, let's say Ender 3 machine, except it's enclosed. So they managed to really, you know, use all of the space that they could. It has a really nice construction, and it's just nice, tight, and compact, and it feels like you're getting more for your money when you first open this thing, especially. It has a massive auxiliary fan for fast printing and a chamber exhaust fan for venting hot air or filtration, depending on what you want to do. You can probably easily attach a filtration system on the back here for printing ABS or ASA or things that you don't want to smell, for example, when you want to print fully enclosed. But that auxiliary fan moves a ton of air, and it helps this thing print really fast. It's obviously optional. You can turn that fan off and go a little bit slower if you want to print with PLA. In fact, you could even take the panels off if you really wanted to and have this thing open if that's what you're just printing PLA with. But just having that giant monster auxiliary fan on the side and the chamber fan on the back, I think is a massive plus. And it helps you regulate the machine in terms of its temperature and keep it cool. So that's definitely a pro. I have here that leveling just works. I never needed to tweak anything or touch anything to get a great first layer every single time. And it uses these load cells on the bottom of the build plate, and before every print it kind of touches the build plate in various ways to get the mesh correct, and then it does this calibration towards the back of the bed where it actually calculates the Z offset by itself. So you literally never have to touch the bed in any single way. You just slice and hit print, and that's pretty cool. So leveling just seems to work. I've never, not once out of any print that I did, had to do any kind of leveling related settings or tweaks at all. Super high quality screen. It feels like a smartphone with a great simple interface that is easy for beginners. Once again, I mentioned it's easy for beginners. I have a feeling that this is going to make a fantastic first machine, or maybe you're fed up with yours and you don't want to deal with making tweaks before prints or modifying it to make it better. I think this is going to be an absolute winner for that type of person. Just the complete hands-off printing on this thing seems to be what it's really good at. When the print is done, it moves the hot end to the fan and cools it down faster. There's a couple little tricks that it does like that. Even when it needs to heat up the nozzle, it goes and touches the bed while the bed is hot, so it just helps the heat bounce off the bed and heat itself. And then when it needs to cool down, it moves towards the auxiliary fan, blows the auxiliary fan full speed, and cools down the hot end faster. It's such a simple thing. It's just essentially G-code, but the fact that that's in there is really cool. I like that a lot, and it's really neat. I've seen people on Vorons do similar things, not quite like this, but I thought that was really trick and worth a pro mention for sure. A lot of your files are saved on the machine for future printing and / management. This is really useful for repeat prints. Like, for example, this is not at all a good example actually now that I think about it, but the Benchy. If you put in a new filament and you want to make sure everything's working with the filament, you just click the sliced file, it saves it right there, it gives you all the stats on it, and it just goes. If you sliced another file, it stays on there, and it's very easy. So like, for example, I put this on there once, it's all on there, it saves it to the machine. You can remove your card here or not have it hooked up to your Wi-Fi at all, and all of the files are still there. Obviously, old school machines with SDs, all the files are on the SD cards, they obviously stay too, but the fact that you're doing things wirelessly, nothing is held anywhere on the internet, it's held in the machine, kind of like an SD does. So it's worth mentioning that those files stay there. One of the things that to elaborate on that is that the print previews are actually really nice. So they give you the time, the materials, all the statistics that you might be interested in, like the length of filament, and then it also gives you a really high definition preview of what you're actually printing. It's not like a low-res little poly box or small like on some machines. In fact, everything that's sent to there has a preview. I know that's been a glitch on other machines that I've had experience with, but those little previews of everything that you want to print are really nice. To be able to see those in a long list, you know, you kind of see them as thumbnails, makes it much easier to manage the files. And I think Creality really did a great job with the interface on this machine, keeping it simple, keeping it really usable. Everything is just, once again, feels tight and expensive, and the screen being high quality. Just all seems to be I don't want to offend them, but un-Creality-like. I kind of want to say that this is probably the highest quality Creality machine that I have ever had experience with, and my first machine was an Ender 3. I've had plenty of Creality machines and Creality clones, but if the Creality stickers weren't on here, there was no way I would have ever guessed that this is a Creality machine. They really went all out. There's so many unique pieces on here and just really interestingly engineered pieces. Obviously, if you squint enough, this kind of looks like other machines outside of where the screen is. However, you know, a minivan is a minivan, right? But they're not exactly the same. They're not clones. There's nothing on here that's a clone of something else. This is a scratch-made machine, and it feels like Creality really threw all of their engineers on this one. They're like, stop what you're doing, do your best work. That's what this feels like, at least to me. All right, what else do I have on this list? Anything? All right, we got one more thing. It says, the smooth bed surface leaves a smooth matte-like texture, and I've had zero adhesion issues with it. So there you go, guys. Those are the cons and the pros. All right, so as a conclusion, I think that this machine is going to be amazing for somebody first looking into getting into 3D printing, or maybe they're fed up with their machine and they want to get something completely push button, something that they don't have to fiddle with. At least in my personal experience with PLA, I can say that this is definitely that machine. It prints really fast. It's built really well. It is super stout. It feels super high quality. There's no way that you would think this is a Creality machine. In my personal experience, if these letters weren't here, there's no way you'd know. It's just very nice. Everything from the glass to the screen to the cover to the fans to the interface to the integrated slicer and the Wi-Fi. Most things about this machine I really enjoy, and I think somebody that's first starting out is going to have a far better experience with something like this, if they can afford it, of course, over a clone or extremely budget machine, just because of the amount of work that you have to do to sometimes get them to print great, or at least maintain them printing great, because a lot of those machines do start out printing really well. So as time goes on, I'm going to continue obviously to use this machine and test it, so just keep in mind that I have a limited time frame of experience with this machine, so it's hard to say what it's going to do in the future. For me personally, I'm really excited to use it as an enclosed machine, because it is an enclosed machine with fan controls. I'd really want to see what this can do with ABS and ASA. That's going to be my primary goal, so I'm going to be waiting for that extruder to come in so that I can throw it in here and make some more content on this machine. Please jump down in the comments and ask any questions that you might have. I'll be more than happy to answer them, and I know the community is going to want to see what this thing is all about as time goes on, because it is definitely a contender for your money in my personal experience. Another thing I want to say is, if you are interested in this machine or anything that I've mentioned here on this little mini review, especially like the filament, please consider using the affiliate links that I've prepared for you in the description, because they help the channel out tremendously. They don't cost you anything, and they should take you exactly where you want to go. But yeah, I think to conclude, I definitely can say that it's going to be much easier for me to recommend this to somebody just starting out, because I think they're going to have a significantly more pleasant experience with this over some other machines that you have to put together or, like I said, tweak. This thing just feels expensive, it feels tight, and when you first get this thing out of the box, it just gives you this feeling like, yeah, this is nice. Whereas a lot of times you take out something, it's like, oh, this is a machine, and it might feel overwhelming for somebody new. And if you're not new, you just don't want the headaches, this will work for you too. There's still plenty of things you could do on the machine to get it printing just the way that you like. All right, I think that's all for me today. Please check out our YouTube membership and Patreons. You get to see all of these videos early and talk to me directly. Check out our free Discord channel where you can share your prints. There's a lot of troubleshooting related channels on there. There's a contest, there's giveaways, there's coupons, there's direct links from the channel with coupons that you can attach to those links. Everything is listed there. All of my print profiles for many different machines, many different materials, all of that is in our free Discord channel. So definitely check that out. Okay. I think that's all for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. There's more to come. And as always, I'll see you all in the comments. Later.